I sure hope you're having fun so far today here at WordCamp Santa Clarita 2021. My name is Sumner Davenport. I'm a specialist in web accessibility and the lead organizer for this WordCamp. You are listening to the 11 a.m. talk with Meryl Evans in the Sky Tower track. And this track is devoted to accessibility topics. Feel free to add your questions to the YouTube chat feed. And if you preface it with the word question, I will find it easier and then we will answer those at the end. I'm a little biased about this next speaker because she's a friend of mine and she shares the passion about making the web accessible to everyone. She's been a marketing rock star for several years, and you can find her showing up virtually recently at WordCamps, at accessibility talks, at Nobility Access U, and quite a few other venues. She is passionate for accessibility and high quality captioning. She lives in Texas, specifically in Plano, Texas, and she states that it's not Pluto, Texas, as so many of those automatic captioning tools will say. And because of those type of misquotes, if you will, she has coined the phrase auto craptions. And that is when you don't get the quality captioning that you deserve from those type of tools. And that's why we have a live captioner here for this event this weekend, who we really do appreciate. Today, she is going to educate you and entertain you as she addresses a question that she is asked most frequently. And that is, OMG, what the heck do I start? Where do I start with accessibility? So here's Meryl.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to WordCamp Santa Clarita. I'm Meryl Evans presenting OMG. Where the heck do I start with accessibility? Before we start, if you'd like to have access to the slides, please go to meryl.net/WCSC. Got it? Excellent. So I'm Meryl Evans, 2 syllables and one with Carol, not Pearl. Pronouns she, her. I'm a lefty with shoulder-length curly hair, pale skin, and a safety blue shirt. I'm a native Texan from Fort Worth who lives in Plano right next to Dallas. I've been in the Los Angeles area a few times. I love going to amusement parks. In fact, this photo of my spouse and I as dressed as pirates comes from our honeymoon in Disney World. I'm excited to go on this ride with you at the amusement park known as WordCamp Santa Clarita. I was born hearing free, aka profoundly deaf. Here's the fact that's going to surprise you. Those of you who haven't met me, many people make this assumption, even accessibility pros and one U.S. vice president. They assume I know sign language. I don't. That's neither a good or a bad thing. It just is. Deaf and hard of hearing people are all different. I can only speak from my own experience. To listen, I rely on lip reading in my bionic ear, which is a lot cooler than saying cochlear implant. In my day job, when I'm not an accessibility and caption pusher, I am a digital marketing handler for accessibility in B2B companies. Here's what I hope you take away from that. Some of you may be sold on accessibility. Some of you may not be. Some of you may need to convince others. We'll talk about why accessibility matters. Where the heck do I start with accessibility? I've asked myself that question many times. Well, start simple by creating accessible content. By the way, A11y is another way of writing accessibility. I'll touch on some of WordPress's accessibility features. All right, you have your favorite amusement park treats ready? I think I smell cotton candy and funnel cake. I grew up 30 minutes from Six Flags over Texas in Arlington. I always loved getting the pink things there as pictured here. It was like a one pusher, except that it was pale pink and shaped like an upside down trapezoid. It was the perfect tree on a hot summer day in Texas. Ready for this ride? All right, let's go. This is my dad in a photo from when he was a good humor man in Brooklyn, New York. Notice the curb cut in front of his truck? The initial purpose for it was to provide a ramp to allow wheelchairs to cross the street. The curb cut ended up helping a lot more people. Parents pushing strollers, travelers pulling nuggets, skateboarders flying, bikers riding, workers carrying heavy loads. Making your website and content accessible will have the curb cut effect. Captions are the best example of that. Many people think caption videos are for the deaf and hard of hearing. Yet, a variety of media and public media reports say 80% of those who use captions are not deaf or hard of hearing. Screen readers aren't just for people who are blind or have low vision. People with other disabilities, like processing disorder, learning differences, and dyslexia, may use them too. Many accessibility supporters open the conversation talking about how many people live with a disability. Even though 1 out of every 4 American adults has some type of disability, decision makers believe it doesn't impact them. Remember the curb cut effect. It shows the value of making everything accessible, including content. Accessibility matters because it gives everyone equal access, regardless of their circumstances. Content accessibility matters because it gives people choices for consuming content. And the bonus to help make the business case. Content accessibility matters because it helps optimize websites for search engines. Firstly, a lot of content is not accessible. A11y says that out of the 1 million websites it evaluated, 97% of the home pages had detectable accessibility problems. And this is where you can make a difference. Selling accessibility helps more than those with a disability. Besides, anyone can become temporarily impaired. While playing tennis, I tore a ligament in my thumb. I couldn't use my thumb for weeks. Boy, I learned how much a thumb can do. Here's a scenario that can happen to anyone. Someone asked me a question, I answered. Or so I thought. I misread the question because my brain was fried after a busy day. This happened to all of us when we're tired, stressed, sick, not sleeping well, or in a distracting environment. All of these can cause temporary impairment, and they happen every day. Anyone can become visually impaired. For example, many people struggle to hear others in a noisy setting. And then there are also episodic impairments like migraine, vertigo, and arthritis. Finally, we all have one thing in common. We're getting older. That aging brings new challenges along the way. Accessibility isn't just the design team's job. It's everyone's job. I believe the biggest root cause of inaccessibility is the lack of education and awareness. And sometimes you don't know where to start. First, put that panic button away and breathe. I've been in your shoes. I've been on the accessibility roller coaster. I still am. I've known about digital accessibility for many years, but I didn't get on the accessibility roller coaster ride full bore until I went to my first accessibility conference. Before that, all I did was capture my videos and add alt text to my images, but not all the time. When I returned to that same conference a year later, I knew I had found my people. I wanted to go into accessibility as part of my day job, not something to do on the side. As I looked for ways to do that, I felt like I was drinking out of a fire hose. There's so much in accessibility. I heard of ARIA, but I couldn't make heads or tails of it. I read the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, better known as WCAG, and I couldn't make heads or tails of that either. I wanted off the roller coaster ride. All the paths led to taking a lot of classes, but I didn't have the time in my schedule to fit all that in. I have bills to pay, especially since I'll be sending my younger kid on this long ride photo up to college I put in. Further off, y'all. Sorry, excited and proud mom here. Anyway, I continued to work at a digital marketer. During this time, the founder of an accessibility company found me on LinkedIn. He started reading my content. He reached out and wanted me to do marketing for him. And that was the start of my accessibility career. You can break into accessibility with your skill by taking it to a company that focuses on accessibility. Since then, I've spoken many times about accessibility in Captions. I knew some best practices for creating web and social media content. As I made it happen to do some of the best practices, I move on and learn the next thing. Here's the most important advice I can give you. The key is progress, not perfection. No one can turn a 10-year-old website into an accessible one overnight. The point is, start. Going forward, you'll make sure anything new is accessible. Don't worry about the old stuff. Progress, not perfection. Start with the simple thing, like the easy parachute ride at Six Flags over Texas. Pick one thing. According to WebMG, missing alternative text for images is the second most common accessibility failure. So a good place to start is by providing alt text for images in your blog and on social media. What alt text does is describe the image as if the image is not there. Sometimes people have images turned off, or they use the screen reader app to read all content out loud. When it comes to images, screen readers read the alt text to describe the image. Some people who aren't blind prefer screen readers for different reasons. And some people turn off images in their email app. When this happens, the alt text appears. WordPress makes it easy to add alt text. If the image is truly decorative and adds nothing to the content, then leave it blank. WordPress puts two empty quotes for the alternative text, which tells the screen reader to ignore the image. Attempting as it is to skip providing alt text for images, you'll be missing out on search engine optimization. They can read the alt text. The former term is text alternative, but it's often referred to as alt text. WordPress calls an alt text as the screenshot from the media page shows. All I have to do is enter the alt text into the box. So here I describe what's important about the image. Social media and plugins can automatically or add alt text, but a study conducted by researchers at Microsoft and UT Austin say that most blind and low vision people do not trust the description provided by today's AI system. I uploaded Denta, Clarita, Rapu, Assisty and Bleepoo to Facebook to see what automatic alt text does. All I said was, may be an illustration. I'm sure we can all think of many possibilities what that means. Here's what WordCamp Santa Clarita's website uses as alt text. WordCamp Santa Clarita's A11y Rapu Assisty containing light green fur, dark green dots, and a polka dot sky blue tail, and Fang wearing an A11y bracelet. Here's what WordCamp's website uses alt text for a bleeper. Illustration of bleeper. Parent to effective. That's been around 1972 at Magic Mountain Amusement Park in the Santa Clarita Valley. Effective alt text describes her feature, but bleeper does not. Does that mean it's bad alt text? Not at all. Bleeper is part of the WordCamp Santa Clarita story, and that's the context for the page she appears on. What makes good alt text? The key is to be descriptive yet concise. What's important about the image? How does it relate to the content? Ask yourself what you want to know about the image if it doesn't show up. WordPress and social networks have different length limits for alt text. Just because they allow for 300 or 1,000 characters does not mean you should fill it as much as you can. Be descriptive yet concise. And you can omit. This is an image or a GIF. You might be wondering about the use of illustration and Bluetooth description. That's different because an illustration is a drawing, not a photograph. You have two images of me. One is the photograph and one is an illustration of that same photo. If the image adds no context to the content, then it's decorative. Otherwise, some social networks will cause screen readers to say something like, there is no alternative text description for this image. That's a lot of words about no image. I looked at a bunch of photos on Facebook with people in them. Automatic alt text has the same thing for all of them. Maybe an image of people and people smiling. And yet, these images featured skydiving, graduation, and NASA. Don't sweat about creating perfect alt text. Remember, progress, not perfection. Just start. Add alt text using these two steps. Be descriptive yet concise while stating what's relevant. I still scratch my head on what to write about some images. I pick up tips along the way and keep improving. When the image is also a link, treat it as a link instead of as an image. It's more important for the alt text to describe where the link goes. For example, many websites have a clickable logo that takes people to the company's homepage. Let's say the logo contains the bear. Company bear logo. It's not good alt text because clicking it doesn't take you to anything associated with bear. It won't take you to Disneyland, Country Bear Jamboree. It won't take you to a Bear Books website. And it won't take you to the Chicago Bears website. A better alt text will be the company's name. Animated GIFs are short animated clips that repeat. So everywhere, website, blog post, avatar, comment, email, and presentation. It's cute at first, but it quickly gets annoying. And for some people, it's downright sickening and dangerous. I posted my share on Twitter. That's because Twitter has an accessibility setting that allows you to turn off autoplay. If you want to watch the GIF, select it and it'll play. Select it again and it'll stop. Facebook works the same way. On LinkedIn, however, they run endlessly until you leave the page or scroll them off the screen. According to Vestibular Disorder Association, 35% of U.S. adults over 40 have some vestibular dysfunction. Flashing, animation, slideshows, and other motion are no joke. They can trigger seizure, migraine, and vertigo for people with vestibular condition. Aside from that, motion distracts people from the content. The movement constantly screams for attention. You think the simple act of adding content is hard to mess up, that letters and numbers can't become inaccessible. Oh, but they can. Even an emoji can become a problem. Yes, those two smiley faces that crack us up can become a problem. Members of the jury, please take a look at Exhibit A. When readers read emojis out loud, it won't simply say, thank you or praying him. Of all things, I know a lot of people who use it to mean those things. It actually folded him. Yes, folded him. Nobody ever uses that as folded him. Now take a look at Exhibit B. People use this as a smiling emoji. It won't simply say smiling. It will say grinning face with smiling eyes. Many online messages repeat emojis or add a bunch of emojis. I've been guilty of that. Remember, the screen reader speaks the full name of the emoji. Keep it in mind before adding emojis around words, phrases, and usernames. Now that you know how screen readers handle emojis, you can imagine what happens when I do this. Thankfully, folding hand, I, folding hand, never, folding hand. You get the idea. It's hard to focus on what it says with folding hand, interrupting everyone. It's fun to use emojis, use them wisely. When you have a bunch of tabs open, how do you know which tab you want? Most likely, you look at the name on the tab. There are 3 tabs from different pages on one website. They all start with the same thing. Many websites put the company name or important keywords first in the page title. Then you don't know which tab is which page. The first thing search engine and screen readers read is the title of the page. That appears in the title tag as shown in this header. In WordPress, the name of the page or blog post is typically the title tag, but there's a title tag with words that describe the page or the blog post. You can add the company name or other important information to the end of it. Remember those outlines you did in school? Headers on web pages work the same way, except they use if, one through each stick tag like this. Like an essay outline, headers help scanners and screen readers get the lay of the land. A web-aimed screen reader survey asks people who use screen reader how they prefer to find information on a long page. Almost 70% of the respondents prefer headings. One of the most common mistakes is to use bold, color, and other styling options to create headers instead of proper heading tags. When this happens, the screen reader won't be able to navigate the content. Some people use heading tags for formatting instead of structure. This can also confuse the screen reader. Think about it this way. You land on a long article. Rather than reading it word for word, you scan the header. That's what each one through each text does for screen reader. Without them, the screen reader reads the whole page. So when you add headers to your content, don't opt for WordPress's bold and color option to distinguish your header. Use heading 1, 2, 3, or whatever is appropriate. When I say appropriate, I don't mean the one with the font style you like. I mean the correct structure. For example, you're writing a blog post. You write your first heading. Which heading will you choose? Not heading 1, because that's the title of the post. And not heading 3, because you skip heading 2. Here, you'll choose heading 2. Another benefit of using headings, they improve SEO. If you have Markdown enabled in WordPress, you will use the hashtag to identify headings instead of the heading tag. The way Markdown works depends on your WordPress setup. For example, if you use the block editor, you'll need to turn on Markdown in the settings under Writing. Then you can keep your hand on the keyboard without having to use the menu or memorize shortcuts. I remember a trend when there were no underlines to indicate links. This was a nightmare. You couldn't find the link as you had to depend on color. And the color didn't always stand out from the content, like in this image example. Keep those underlined. Paying attention to color is important considering 1 in every 12 of the male population has limited color vision, according to the National Institute of Health. Relying on colorful links can be a problem for people with dyslexia, processing disorders, and other disabilities. An underlined link is easier to find. Skip linking full URL. The screen reader reads everything. https://wordcamp.org/2021 and so on. The next step is to make sure people know which links they want. When I started blogging in 2000, you can bet I had a lot of posts with accessibility issues. One of those is that every post I had read more. The screen reader will read them out loud as links. One page could have 8 read more. Which one did the visitor want? Jojo's and WP Accessibility plugin took care of that for me. It changed auto read more to a link that matches the title of the post. On top of that, the plugin prevents the screen reader from reading the blog post title and the read more link with the title. It only stays once. Check the name of the link in your content. Do they make sense? Do they tell you where you'll land if you click? Are there duplicates? The massive WordPress community is committed to building an inclusive and accessible software. Not only for visitors, but for also people working with WordPress. WordPress has accessibility coding standards that state code in the WordPress ecosystem is expected to conform to the WCAG. There are a few accessibility plugins to help ensure your WordPress site is accessible. But of course, automation can only do so much. As you saw, it cannot provide good auth text. There are a lot of things a plugin and automation can't fix and will let you know of potential problems, but you need to look at them to address them. My work that has been around in 1996, long before I started learning about creating accessible content. Rather than trying to go back and fix everything, I installed WP Accessibility plugin, and it fixed a lot of things, but not everything. It also has the color contrast checker tool built in. You can turn on the word for the non-DESD attribute. This lets you enter a description for images that have a lot of information than what you can put in the art attribute. These include infographics and graphs. The plugin has settings you can tweak, but you don't want to start your accessibility roller coaster there. The best place to start is to install it and let it work its magic where it can. There are other WordPress accessibility plugins, but remember, you want to start simple. This is the best place to start. When it comes to media, the first rule is not to autoplay. It can freak people out, and the volume can be too loud. This includes slideshows, sliders, and anything with movement. Like animated GIFs, they can be a problem for people sensitive with motion. They also detract from the content. Some videos don't have control. Let the viewer be in control. The more control you give user, the better the experience. If they miss the point, you want them to be able to go back and catch it again. But speaking of missed points, They could be missing it because of bad quality audio, when they can't catch what the speakers say. Caption to the rescue! Add caption and transcript to your video. Some folks like transcript because they can scan the content without playing the entire video or podcast. You post your caption video on YouTube or Vimeo and link it to it from WordPress. It'll be captioned. When you add a video to WordPress, it'll give you an opportunity to upload your subtitles file. A video that contains meaningful visual will most likely need an audio description. It's sometimes referred to as video description, described video, or AD. It describes the visual element in a video. So overwhelmed? Start by adding WP accessibility plugin so that it can fix whatever it can. Then pick one thing I talked about here. The most two common errors on websites are the lack of alt text and heading. Next time you post an image on social media, add the alt text. Keep doing that until it becomes a habit and you're comfortable. Once you do that, move on to the next thing. If you write blog posts, start using heading tags for your header instead of formatting it with bold and color. If you create video captions, start to take your knowledge further, take a course. W3C Web Accessibility Initiative offers a free online course on Introduction to Web Accessibility. Check out Ways, tutorials, and tips for getting started, or Web Intro. Here's the funnel cake I've been smelling the whole time. Anyway, content accessibility isn't a project. It's continuous. It takes one mistake to undo the hard work. A website may pass all accessibility tests today, but anything could happen tomorrow. For instance, someone publishes a new blog post without adding the alt text to the image. That's why accessibility needs to be baked into the process. Accessibility takes time to learn and bake into your processes. Don't stress over perfection. Focus on progress. You'll be rewarded in so many ways. Search engines will favor your content. You'll reach more people and get them more options for consuming your content. Remember, cause effect, y'all. Accessibility is rewarding, and it takes all of us to make it happen. I refused to go on a zip line as a kid, and look at me in this photo, zip lining as an adult with a smile on my face. You'll get there too. You can email me at me@meryl.net. To connect with me on social media, go to meryl.net for the links, or go to the resources page for the presentation. Other slides and the resources are posted at meryl.net/WCSC. Here's the text die yeehaw! And thanks to WordCamp Santa Clarita and the organizers for having me, and to you for your time. Thank you.
I certainly love the yeehaw that she gave us. And right now I'm reading the YouTube channel and I'm going to be asking Meryl some questions. So we have a little lag here. So please be patient with us. Meryl, you gave essential information in your talk. What are some simple recommendations that you have to bake accessibility into a new website?
Every project is different because of size and technology used. So the best advice I can give is to create processes and checklists. You'll evolve them over time. So don't worry about perfection. Just get creative. And then you'll make them better as you iterate. So your project is going to be different from my project. You might be building an enterprise website, whereas mine is a simple WordPress website for one person. Our processes are going to be very different. So, the only way I can give an answer that will satisfy everyone is to recommend processes and checklists.
Thank you very much for that answer. The next question we have, it's very important. Should we use punctuation when we create alt text? And what about quoting on-screen text?
Yes, we should use punctuation in alt text because the screen reader will actually read note those punctuation, but the professional screen reader user will be listening really, really fast. I have watched some demonstrations from people who use the screen reader every day, and they read so fast that it sounds like gibberish. So it's amazing to watch. So if you ever have an opportunity to catch a demo, I recommend it. It's still good to have the punctuation, and you do want to quote the on-screen text as well. Of course, you may have to compromise sometimes because it depends on what you're using to write the alt text. Because some platforms have a limitation on how many letters you can use. So just because something has 1,000 characters doesn't mean you should use them all, as I mentioned before. So it's all about providing clear, concise description.
Thank you for that. The next question is really plays on that, related especially to videos. Do you want to identify different speakers in the captions?
Absolutely. Speaker identification is one of my top 10 rules for good captions because who says what is so important. I can't tell you how many times I've had to back up things to figure out who said something because it was something crucial about what they shared that reveals something about their character or the mystery or whatever's going on the screen.
Very, very valid points. We do appreciate. I'm copying and pasting from the chat. What is the best practice you can recommend for adding descriptive text to charts and infographics?
So I copied and pasted a link that's way too long to say out loud into the chat box. It is Writing Alt Text for Data Visualization by Amy Desal. She has the best article that I'm always referring people to. As I said, progress, not perfection. I'm always improving my alt text. And whenever I think of visualization, I go to her resource. And I also go to Sarah Fossheim, Fossheim website, which is her last name. And I will copy and paste that into the group chat box as well to help you find it.
I just want to read you a comment that was in the chat. Some people do read using screen readers so fast. For this person, it's like she likes punctuations because it sounds more like people speaking. I like that comment.
I do too. I use a screen reader for testing purposes, and I will tell you, I will not make it faster. You can control the speed, but I have to read it. So I turn on the speech viewer, which I call captions, of course. So if I make it too fast, then I won't catch it. But it's really fascinating to try out and play with the screen reader and the different voices. So NVDA is free, so give it a try. See what it's like. Try out the different voices and see what you like. Change the speed and see what happens.
Good points. Good points. This particular question is something that so many websites have this on their website. What should they use instead of click here or read more links?
the answer would depend on what's going on the website, because every web page is different, obviously. So often, if it's just a blog post, it should go with title, and that's what the WordPress accessibility plugin does. It turns those read more into the title of the post, which is more appropriate. So instead of click here, it might say, learn more about whatever the topic is. It's hard to think of an example without something specific. Like sign up free for our newsletter. Instead of click here for our newsletter or to subscribe.
So adding a little bit more content to that sentence.
Yes.
Instead of just those two words.
Exactly. Think about it. When you're on a search engine, do you search for click here, read more? So those are not serving your website in terms of search engine optimization. What would you search for to get to that page that can help you get the context down?
Very good point. When you think of going beyond just making it accessible, making it also good for your marketing approach, which is your SEO. I have another question here. Do we use only one H1 on a page, or can there be more than one? And does it make a difference?
The interesting thing is, when we did our school outline, we never had just one A. We always have A and a B, right? But for websites, I was wondering this myself, because usually everything has two of everything. But I just read somewhere, I wish I could remember who it was, but they confirmed we still use H1 one time, and that's the title of the page. And then you can have multiple H2, multiple H3, and just remember to make sure it's structured properly. The screen readers get confused when people use heading or formatting instead of structure.
A comment is that you make accessibility fun. And that's true, because so many people approach accessibility feeling scared and overwhelmed. So what would you recommend to help someone take their first step and get over that resistance?
What do I recommend for someone to take it the first step when they're scared about accessibility? I would say try to start with a simple course or one of the resources I recommend, just to get a feel for it, to get an overview of it. There's a lot of great free online courses that give you an introduction to accessibility, and I believe the resources I provide are a great place to start.
Very good point. Very good point. A question in the chat, you answered partially. While making accessibility updates to an old, non-accessible site, this person would like to add a disclaimer of some kind to let people know what they're working on. What would you suggest?
As I mentioned on the chat, I recommend making an accessibility disclaimer. I know somebody said, what if nobody's looking for the accessibility statement? That's what I was trying to think of, the statement. I have one on my website, which I shared. But people who care about accessibility are going to look for that statement in the footer. So it's really a good place to put it, because you don't know where people are going to end up on your website. They might end up on the homepage or the blog page or some specific content you have. I have an article that's been getting clicks for years. It's the strangest thing. It's an article that says, do something creative. It's so funny. It was a one-line blog post I wrote more than 10 years ago. I don't even remember what happened. I wrote, do something creative, and it blows up in your face. So I must have been trying something out and it didn't work out. Well, search engines not my page for some reason, so I wrote a further article about it, and it still gets hit. So you just never know where people are going to end up on your website. But the accessibility statement can always be found at the footer with the information on what you're doing for your website accessibility.
Good point. Very good point. Putting it in a place where people can find it. Other than Pluto for Plano, do you have any other examples of auto craptions that you can share with us?
You know it. I have one I dealt with yesterday. So Twitter now has automatic caption of Twitter audio tweets. They're now captioned. That just became a feature on Thursday. So I was testing it out, and I said, let's see how it does with my funky accent, okay? Well, the caption said, my funky donkey, the other word for donkey, bent. So it said ass bent. And on top of that, it put the bad word in profanity. It put like HTML markup, profanity. So it was a reverse problem. It actually said I said a bad word when I did not. So I'm struggling with, should it be doing that when I didn't say the bad word? But that's a whole nother complication. Yes, nobody ever wants to be misquoted, and they certainly don't want to be misquoted as saying a bad word when they were not. Because I know some people who complain about speakers who use the F word all the time. That's fine. I respect the speaker's decision, but it doesn't mean don't listen to them when they speak. I don't want somebody to think I say bad words all the time when I don't. And it can reflect my branding and my reputation. So what's the right thing to do with captions when it thinks, auto correction thinks you said a bad word, but you did not? Do we use asterisks instead? It's a raging debate that has yet to be solved.
And that's why we use live captioning.
You got it.
Any last comments before we close today?
The accessibility world is wonderful. The people are amazing. They all want to help. Of course, there are some who don't have the heart in the right place. They're doing it for the money, and that happens. Every industry has that. But I'm very grateful for all the people I meet. I truly believe it takes a village. Well, I like to say, hashtag, it takes a village. We all have a role to play. Everybody's job, accessibility is everybody's job.
I agree. Thank you so much, Meryl, for being with us today. And thank all of the...
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you to all the attendees for attending this session with Meryl Evans and myself. You can continue the conversation and get any questions that were left unanswered by using the Slack channel. And perhaps one of our moderators will put the link in the chat in YouTube so that you can follow it. We'll be taking a lunch break after this. However, after lunch, don't forget to attend the next talk, Beyond 99 Red Balloons, a pragmatic guide to alternative texts with Amy June Heinlein at 1 p.m. right here, same channel. See you here after lunch. Bye-bye.